Hi there, Phil the Practical Gardener again. So this particular tip is about climbing frames for vegetable gardens. Now I will be producing another tip regarding climbing frames in general. That'll be related more to ornamental gardens where there are issues with climbing frames about training and pruning the climbers and also long-term maintenance. This doesn't so much apply to a vegetable garden such as this one here, where I've got a climbing frame for my beans which are pretty much finished for the season. I'm just waiting to collect a few dry seeds from them. If you've been watching my tips, you'll be aware that I'm a great fan of vertical gardens. Vertical gardens can be used for vegetables and berry crops and also for flowers, and a climbing frame is another form of vertical garden. They do have a number of benefits. That is, for example, in a vegetable garden situation, you get a lot more vertical production. You can grow beans low on the ground. You won't get so much of a crop from them. Some of the crops that you grow on a climbing frame, such as peas or cucumbers, can scramble on the ground. However, not only will you use your space more efficiently if you have a climbing frame, but also the plants will be easier to manage. They'll be at convenient picking height, and also they'll be less prone to disease attack, and it will be easier to weed under them. Now, a general comment that I will make about any form of climbing frame is that you make sure that you keep the base of it round about 4 inches or 100 millimeters above the soil. I'll be showing you this shortly. This makes weeding and general maintenance a lot easier. If the plants are struggling to reach the bottom of the frame, you can easily coax them up, but I find that usually they can find their own way by using their tendrils. So let's look into the different form of climbing frames for vegetables. First of all, tall frames. These can be up to 2 meters or 6 foot 6 inches high, which is about the maximum height that you will be able to reach. Remembering that scrambling plants such as climbing beans and cucumbers will actually grow above the top of your structure. With a frame of this height, it is most practical to build a permanent structure with wooden or steel posts and standards. I wouldn't suggest that you concrete these into the ground. I never do, and I don't have any problem with them blowing over. This makes them easier to move should you wish to do so in the future. The structure should include a bracing element along the top for stability. The netting should be of a permanent material such as steel reinforcing mesh. I actually use galvanized as I prefer the non-rusted look. The distance between the mesh rods can be round about 100 millimeters by 100 millimeters or 4 by 4 inches or even more. The plants will scramble over this with no difficulty, and it will be easier to remove the vines at the end of the growing season than with closely spaced rods. As these frames are semi-permanent, you're likely to be growing the same crop, that is, for example, climbing beans, over successive seasons. However, these plants don't have a high need for crop rotation. Secondly, low netting. Climbing peas don't grow as tall as beans, so an impermanent trellis, 90 to 120 centimeters or 3 to 4 foot high, may be adequate. The advantage of a temporary frame is that it is easy and cheap to construct, and that you can remove it at the end of the harvesting period in order to grow a different crop. It also allows for more flexibility in crop rotation. In my case, I push or hammer a metal or wooden stake at each end of the row and weave simple plastic netting over it. To avoid the netting flexing too much, I add a few intermediate stakes which I simply weave through the netting again and just push lightly into the ground. Note that again I keep the bottom of the netting about 100 millimeters or 4 inches above the soil. This makes it easy to rake a furrow and sow my pea seeds, and also to put my netting hoops over to discourage birds from digging the seeds up. The structure can be easily dismantled and the netting rolled up when the crop is finished. I'll finish with alternative structures. There is an infinite range of forms that can be creatively used for crops to scramble on. This is one I saw at Hampton Court Palace Gardens near London. Here is another simple one I saw at the Chelsea Flower Show. Sticks pushed into the soil have been used for peas in this garden. The permanent netting on frames behind the peas, in this case, will be used for climbing beans as the season progresses. Ornamental obelisks on your flower garden can accommodate climbing vegetables. An arch over a garden path can be purchased or constructed by simply bending reinforcing grid. It can be attached to a length of steel rebar which has been bent into shape. An arch is a very effective way of using your entire garden space. Now, I have been producing a range of tips on general aspects of vegetable growing, and this is actually the last one of them, as you can see here. I've also covered quite a range of vegetable crops, and I will be gradually filling them in as time allows. You would pay to look at this whole range of tips, the introductory ones I mean, and would also pay to look at some of the others, such as the ones that I've been doing about managing your soil, because this is key to success in my vegetable garden here. I'll be further interested in any comments that you might have about your experiences with climbing frames for vegetables, and also, now that I've finished these introductory tips, about different aspects about watering or managing your soil, companion plants, successional plantings over the year and such like. And also, of course, don't forget to like and also share this tip with other people. And finally, as always, thank you very much for watching this tip through to the end.